December 1777. A carriage rolls to a stop on a frozen cobblestone street. The door opens slowly. An old man steps down, 71 years old, his body worn from 6 weeks crossing the Atlantic in winter. His coat is plain brown wool. On his head, a marten fur cap pulled low over thinning gray hair. No sword, no powdered wig, no silk. The crowd that is gathered to watch him does not care. They press forward anyway, hands reaching, voices calling his name. They have seen the engravings. They know who he is. Benjamin Franklin has arrived in Paris, and the fate of the American Revolution has arrived with him. Because the army is ragged, the treasury is empty, the Continental Congress is desperate. Across 3,000 miles of ocean, Washington's men are bleeding into the snow at Valley Forge, unpaid, underfed, and running out of time. Only one nation on earth has the ships, the soldiers, and the money to change that, and Franklin has come to convince them. He is not a general. He cannot take a hill or hold a line. He is a printer's son from Boston with bifocal spectacles and a gift for conversation. But sometimes the right word in the right room changes the world. To understand what happens in Paris, you have to understand who walks into it. Benjamin Franklin was born in 1706, the 10th son of a Boston candlemaker. 2 years of formal schooling. That was all he ever got. At 12, he was apprenticed to his older brother James, setting type in a print shop, breathing ink dust, learning the trade that would make him wealthy and the words that would make him immortal. At 17, he ran. He arrived in Philadelphia with nothing but determination and a loaf of bread. Within a decade, he owned the Pennsylvania Gazette, one of the most influential newspapers in the colonies. He launched Poor Richard's Almanac, filled with the kind of blunt, practical wisdom that became the American voice before America had a name. Early to bed and early to rise. A penny saved. Time is money. 40,000 copies a year in a country of 2 million people. He didn't stop there. He founded the first public lending library in America, the first volunteer fire company, the first fire insurance firm in the colonies. He organized street cleaning. He planned hospitals. He charted the Gulf Stream. And then, in a field outside Philadelphia in the summer of 1752, he flew a kite in a thunderstorm. The key tied to the string. The lightning. The jar. The spark that proved that lightning was electricity, and electricity could be tamed. The lightning rod he invented spread across Europe within a decade. The Royal Society of London made him a fellow. Oxford gave him an honorary degree. Voltaire called him the greatest man alive. By the time revolution came, Benjamin Franklin was the most famous American in the world, which is precisely why Congress sent him to France. Paris in 1778 was the center of everything: philosophy, art, fashion, power. The salons of the city buzzed with Enlightenment ideas about liberty, reason, and the rights of man. France was the richest monarchy on earth, ruled by a young king, Louis XVI, not yet 30 years old, and his court at Versailles was the most powerful in Europe. Franklin understood immediately. This was theater. So he chose his costume with care. Every other diplomat arriving at Versailles wore powder and silk and swords. Franklin wore the same plain brown coat he had stepped off the boat in. He kept the fur cap. He kept the spectacles. He kept the easy smile and the unhurried wit. To the French aristocracy, he looked like something from a painting, Rousseau's natural man-made flesh. The wise philosopher of the untamed New World, unbothered by European vanity. They were captivated. Engravings of Franklin in his fur cap spread across Paris within weeks. Medallions bearing his likeness became fashionable jewelry. Ladies in the salons of Madame du Deffand pressed forward to sit beside him, to hear him speak, to tell their friends they had met him. Franklin let it happen, and while it was happening, he worked. He cultivated the Comte de Vergennes, France's foreign minister, the man who actually controlled the levers of foreign policy. He dined with scientists. He corresponded with philosophers. He charmed the men who could open doors and flattered the ones who stood behind them. He had already helped arrange secret shipments of gunpowder and muskets through dummy trading companies, French aid flowing quietly to the Continental Army while Louis XVI maintained official neutrality. But quiet aid was not enough. Franklin needed ships, soldiers, a formal alliance, the kind of commitment that would change the war. And for months, Vergennes said no. France had been humiliated by Britain in the 7 Years' War just 15 years earlier. The idea of revenge was tempting, but entering another war, openly, formally, was ruinously expensive, and the American cause, however romantic, still looked uncertain. Franklin waited. He pressed when he could, he charmed when he had to. He played the long game the way only a man who had built an empire from a print shop could. And then on December 4th, 1777, a courier arrived from across the Atlantic with news. Saratoga, New York. October 17th, 1777. In the forests of upstate New York, American forces under General Horatio Gates had done something that no one in Europe believed possible. They had surrounded an entire British army, 6,000 professional soldiers, regulars, Hessians, the finest troops Britain could field, under General John Burgoyne. And Burgoyne had surrendered. All of them. It was the largest British military defeat in a generation. Proof, undeniable and documented, that the American army could fight, could maneuver, and could win. The news reached Paris on December 4th. Franklin did not rush. He did not celebrate publicly or plead urgency. He let the news speak, and then he shaped the conversation around it. He made sure it spread through every salon, every newspaper, every court corridor. He arranged to have it discussed where Vergennes would hear it discussed. He reminded the French, quietly, that the British were now considering peace overtures. That if France hesitated, it might find itself watching from the outside as the old enemy settled with the colonies and emerged stronger than before. The urgency was real. The timing was deliberate. It worked. Vergennes moved. Louis XVI gave his assent. And on February 6, 1778, in a quiet ceremony in Paris, Benjamin Franklin signed two treaties that changed the course of the war. The Treaty of Amity and Commerce, recognizing American independence and opening trade between the two nations. The Treaty of Alliance, committing France to military support. Neither nation would make a separate peace with Britain. It was done. The alliance transformed everything. French ships began to challenge British naval supremacy on the Atlantic. French soldiers trained alongside Continental troops. French gold and credit sustained an army that had been weeks from collapse. Over the years of the alliance, France would spend the equivalent of 1.3 billion livres on the American cause, a staggering sum that would ultimately strain the French treasury to its breaking point and help ignite a revolution of its own. But in 1778, it saved the American one. Franklin remained in Paris until 1785, managing the endless machinery of the alliance, negotiating loans, smoothing tensions between difficult men, writing dispatches, attending Versailles, never resting, never quite well, always working. He was there when the French fleet under Admiral de Grasse sailed into the Chesapeake Bay in September 1781 and cut off British escape. He was there when Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, and in 1783 he sat at the table in Paris and helped negotiate the Treaty of Peace that formally ended the war and gave the United States its independence. 9 years, an ocean away from home, in a foreign language, in a foreign court, in a plain brown coat and a fur cap. He came home in 1785 to cheering crowds in Philadelphia, served at the Constitutional Convention, died in 1790, 84 years old, in the nation he had helped build twice, once with words and once with diplomacy. But consider what he actually did. He didn't command armies. He didn't fire a rifle. He walked into the most powerful royal court in the world as a self-taught printer's son from Boston, and he convinced a king to go to war. Without the French fleet, the British control the seas. Without French gold, the Continental Army collapses. Without French troops at Yorktown, Cornwallis doesn't surrender. Without Saratoga amplified by Franklin's timing, France never commits. Every thread runs back to one old man in a fur cap sitting in a Parisian salon, smiling, waiting for exactly the right moment to say exactly the right thing. He understood something that generals and kings often forget, that the most powerful weapon in the world is sometimes not a cannon, it is persuasion. Next on Pivot Points, he was the richest man in New England, a smuggler, a rabble-rouser, a man the British Crown wanted arrested, tried, and hanged. But John Hancock didn't run from the empire that wanted him dead. He walked straight into its face, picked up a quill, and signed his name so large, so bold, so deliberately oversized that King George could read it without his spectacles. That signature didn't just defy a king, it made Hancock the most wanted man in America, and the most famous. One signature, one decision, everything changed. John Hancock, next time on Pivot Points.